spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News: Can a white student be a protester? USA Alj. What a recent incident between an Omaha elder and a white student tells us about race and protest in the U.S. today. Hi. Sandman's opening sentence throws up core questions that are buried by the media spectacle and debates about the content and interpretation of the video. Who can be a protester? Sandman's statement, crafted no doubt with the aid of many adults, have provided early shape to the narrative by introducing the terms that have slipped unnoticed into media coverage of this viral event. In the statement, the word protester crops up repeatedly with reference to Nathan Phillips, the native Omaha elder who moved between the two other groups at the scene, the Covington contingent and the Black Israelites. The latter are also framed as this, rather than a confrontation between protesters of different ages. Sandman's statement frames the encounter alternately as students facing protesters and adults. It assures us that they would never have begun countering other groups with school chants. In this narrative, the tomahawk chops and hats that Phillips and others at the scene reported, mixed in with what Sandman claimed were schools. We should ask what is at stake for Sandman, his supporters, and for our larger cultural conversation in what has come to be known as an age. The separation of students from protester in Sandman's statement echoes long histories of either casting as violent and unruly even non-violent protests by the wrong. A recent journal issue on the very topic of protest, we have written about the question of selective legitimacy of protests in the public sphere. As we wrote there, 1. As we can see in this situation, peaceful modes of protest by racialized minorities are no guarantee of legitimacy. Thus, while, additionally, as the youth in places like Gaza, Kashmir, and at the can attest, being a student does not automatically inoculate one from being seen as a threatening political agent. Young men and women, in the U.S., particularly in our current moment under the Trump administration, an unsanctioned protester are often portrayed as Arctic for financial gain, disrupting things for no reason, rioting, a destroyer of private property, and clogging up streets simply to cause chaos, or it had a larger strategy in mind. Sandman's statement shows with stark clarity how protester can be deployed as a dirty word. In 2019 United States, the unsanctioned protester is cast as chaotic, confrontational, and always on the verge of becoming violent. His statement asserts that he does not even know why the African Americans or Native people were protesting, yet he is sure that protesting is what they were up to. All Sandman does, who is the president of the National Lawyers Guild and a partner at Cohen & Green, PLLC, co-authored this article. The views expressed in this article are the author's own and do not necessarily reflect Al Jazeera's editorial stance.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.